Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Realtree, Hoyt Archery, Muddy Outdoors, Fuse Accessories, Trophy Rock, Frigid Forage, Scott Archery, Cabela's, Rocket Broadheads, Woods Zero-Turn Mowers, Bloodsport Arrows, Redneck Hunting Blinds, Scentmaster, Yeti Coolers, ScentLock, and Nikon.
Welcome to Midwest Whitetail. On today's episode, I'm going to go through a shooting and tuning tip, and we've got a couple of turkey hunts, one from Scott Prucha and one from Jim Ryser, who produces our music for us here at Midwest Whitetail. I'm also going to take a trip down into the woods and talk about how the wind swirls. I can hear it rolling through the trees right now, and understanding how it swirls down in the valleys in this area where we hunt. That's a big part of selecting a stand location where you're not going to get picked off during the season. So it's something to understand. It's sometimes a little bit of a complicated thing to put together, but hopefully we can sort it out today. First, I'm going to do a little shooting here. And one of the things that really messes me up personally, let's say a fault that I've got, is when I hit full draw, I tend to want to pull too far around with my elbow. And when that happens, you put side pressure on the string, and when you release it, the string wavers or oscillates side to side. And depending upon the rhythm of the movement of the string, you can get some really hard to eliminate tail left or tail right tears on your arrow. So for me, it's a tail left tear. And if I pull too far around, you put that side pressure on the string, and when you let it go, the string rebounds by moving away at an angle away from my face, and then works its way back again, kicks the arrow left. It might be different for somebody else. So one of my keys at full draw is to try to point my elbow straight away from the target. Just really exaggerate that fact of pulling straight away from the target with my elbow. And that keeps me more in line. And also the way I notice that is my bow will jump straight forward on release rather than kicking around. And I can tell when I'm shooting that way, making that error, because my bow on the follow through will want to turn, kick to the side, or point left. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not something that you're going to read about a lot or hear about a lot, but it's definitely something that affects me. And I'm sure if it affects me, there's a few people out there that are running into the same problem. Try to get that elbow pointed straight behind you, and then you'll see that the bow jumps straight forward on your follow through. As long as I've got you out here in the range, let's talk about one more thing that I do, and that's wearing these cotton jersey gloves every time I shoot. I hunt in these too, and as I've talked about in the scent control episode that I did several episodes back, I wear a clean one every time I go out to the tree stand. They're cheap, they're easy to wash. When they fray up, you just throw them away. But I always want to have clean gloves on. Well, I shoot with these things on all summer long. And the main reason is because I don't want to have my shooting form change between summertime and fall when I hunt. But just as importantly, you can see how easily my hand moves on that grip. I mean, it literally just whips around on there like it's nothing. There's almost no friction between the glove and this wooden grip. So when I draw the bow back, I don't have that tendency to snag the grip with my hand. If you go skin on grip, you're going to get some tendency to introduce torque where you could have it wrong in your hand, and it's going to stay wrong all the way through the shot, and then the bow is going to snap back when you release the string because you're going to have tension built up between the skin and the grip of the bow. But with this glove on, it has to find its own center. So you're basically shooting with a purely torque-free grip. It's going to feel really awkward at first because it's not something that people are used to doing, because they like being able to control that grip with that friction between their skin and the grip. But trust me, if you shoot this way for just a couple of weeks, it'll start to feel natural, and your shooting will become a lot more consistent because you eliminate that bow hand torque.
Typical Prucha, man. Typical Prucha.
Anytime. Let him come to the decoy. You're good. I'm totally. Wait. Let him come along the decoy. Go ahead. I'll tell you when. Anytime.
Here's the result of our Easter morning turkey hunt here in southern Iowa. Jim Ryser was out here with me calling and did an awesome job. I was saying earlier in the morning, I don't think we could have positioned ourselves further away from gobbling turkeys. I mean, there was nothing close. Finally, we had one back on the ridge. I don't know if you can see our setup behind me here, but we had one back up on the other side of the timber. There's a field up there, and it sounded like he was up there and was getting a little closer. Next thing we know, we hear him flapping wings. Literally sailed from over the timber down to the corner of the field, looped up around us, and came right into the DSD decoy. It was an incredible morning, and couldn't be happier. Great time, good friends. That's what it's all about.
In this next segment, I want to talk about how the wind swirls. In this case, it's a valley, but there's a lot of other situations where the wind swirls too when we're hunting. And if you can predict when it's going to happen, then you can either avoid those spots, or better yet, if you can predict accurately enough how the wind is going to swirl, you can sometimes use that to your advantage. First, let's talk about this little valley that I'm in. Anytime you've got a wind that blows across a valley, you're going to have swirling, at least on the upwind side, sometimes on the downwind side, depending upon how, how wide the valley is. So what it really boils down to is the same thing you get if you're looking at a trout stream or any kind of running water, and you've got something that creates a obstruction to the main flow of the current. There's always going to be what you'd call maybe a protected area, or an area where the water's dead, or in our case, where the air is dead. Anytime you've got a spot like that, you're going to get swirling. In the trout streams, you're going to get eddies. That's where the eddies come from, because they're protected from the main flow, so the current swirls back through those spots. And in the deer hunting terrain, it's these little pockets like this that are protected from the main flow of the wind. Today's a pretty breezy day, and the wind is blowing right over the top of this little valley. And if I was dropping little wind floaters right now, when the wind gusted, it might be going that way in the opposite direction of where the main flow of the wind is coming from. Maybe the next time I do it, it'd be going the other direction. So it's one of those situations where, in my mind, you completely avoid this spot, because you just have too much going on, too many things that you're trying to, too many pieces you're trying to pull together, and just can't be done. So think about it in terms of anytime you got protected air, you're going to get swirling. And it's not always just the terrain. Sometimes it's caused by cover. We've had this happen quite a bit too, where you've got particularly heavy cover, and if the wind is coming into it, it's no big deal. It'll kind of push it up and knock it over the top. But if the wind is coming over the top of the heavy cover serves that same purpose. It creates that dead airspace in behind, and now you've got the swirling that occurs back there. So just keep in mind that when you're dealing with swirling wind currents, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. Anytime there's dead airspace, you're going to get swirling when the wind blows. It can be on the downwind side of a terrain feature, it can be on the downwind side of some thick cover. Anything like that is going to, like I said, it's going to create that dead space where it swirls into. Sometimes it even creates a deflector. So if you've got wind coming at this angle and it hits some heavy cover, it can be deflected and kicked to travel right along the same line as the break line of the heavy cover. In some cases, it's just going to be experience is going to be your only teacher. But the more time you spend in the woods, and the more time you're dropping the wind floaters and seeing what's going on, the better able you're going to be to anticipate these things. And then when you look at the wind forecast and you're thinking in terms of, I got my aerial photo out here, you know, how is the wind going to swirl in this area? Is it going to be a good spot for me to put my stand up today? You should be able to look far enough ahead and see the problems that come up from that, or the opportunities in some cases. You know, if you get the deflection of the wind or whatever, you might be able to put that to work for you. The only time you don't get swirling in this hill country is when the wind blows parallel to the terrain feature. So I'm in this valley right now. If the wind is blowing that way, I'm not going to get swirling. If the wind is blowing that way, I'm not going to get swirling. If it blows across at any angle, it's going to swirl down in here. These two turkey hunts that we're bringing you on today's episode are from Scott Prucha and Jim Ryser, and we really appreciate the efforts that they put in and the support that they give Midwest Whitetail. Jim produces most of the music that we use on the show, so it's a lot of custom work, a lot of music that's exclusive to Midwest Whitetail, which is really nice because then we can create scores that actually go with the specific scenes and the moods that we're trying to create, which gives us a great advantage. And Scott's always been a great supporter of Midwest Whitetail as well. So hopefully you're enjoying today's turkey hunts. We got one more for you, and then I'll wrap it up after that.
Well, another unbelievable day of hunting. I scored in Iowa last week, scored in Indiana yesterday, came to Kentucky this afternoon just to kind of scout out some birds, and all of a sudden I come in, I parked my truck, grabbed my decoy, and kind of got everything all ready to go and packed up so I could at least scout around a little bit and do Aaron's baiting the trout line technique, where you go from ridge to ridge and just kind of cackle a little bit and see if you can't get the hen's attention and get the gobblers moving. Had no expectations of anything, and as I was walking through here, I was kind of looking over this hill behind me, and I heard a gobble. It sounded like it was from this ridge, but it might have been from the ridge behind me. But either way, I heard that gobble and immediately went ahead and set up. I used this old trailer as some blind material. I don't think I would have scored had I not had it, because there was enough bushes right behind here to be able to cover me while I got my camera and got my gun ready once these two birds came in. These two birds came in pretty quietly. I didn't hear any more gobbling. I did some cackling, I did a little bit of calling, and then I did one small call and heard the gobble and knew they were committed. So I got everything all set to go. I didn't have the safety off of my gun. And I jerked that trigger, so I've got some practicing to do. But the second shot, I didn't jerk that trigger. I was very smooth and busted this head wide open. And we now have turkey number 3 for my season in the books. And I could not be happier. This is just so cool.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you right back here again next Monday for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. And remember to always dream big.